So De Vries up at the third quickest then in the Mahindra. What about Oliver Rowland, reigning world champion? Can he improve? He can improve, but it's not enough for the Jules. Oliver Rowland is out of qualifying in Group A here in London. Does not make it through, and his teammate Nato compounds Nissan's woes. We thought they might be in trouble, and so it proves to be the 4 Nissan-powered cars will not go any further than Group A here this afternoon.
And Cassidy's improved his time even more on that final lap.
Nick Cassidy, an absolutely stonking lap for him, sees him through into the dual stages of qualifying. Gunther for DS Penske, De Vries for Mahindra, and Ticktum for Cooper Kiro go through. This is going to be tight here for Hughes then as he comes to the timeline. He does improve in that final sector. Great end to the lap for him. And Van Dorn's looking pretty handy in the second of the Maseratis as well. He comes to the timing line. What can he do? Up into third place. Knocks out Mitch Evans at this stage then. Verline continues. He's on an absolute flyer. Personal best and fastest overall in sectors 1 and 2. And this is going to rewrite the fastest time that we've seen in Group B qualifying. He comes to the timing line and he goes and stays at the top of the order. Da Costa has not made it through. He's only 8th quickest. That's a disaster for the second of the Tag Heuer Porsches in such a critical weekend for them in the Teams Championship. But Mitch Evans does pull the lap out of the bag and at the moment knocks out Edo Mortara. Verline makes it through as well as Mitch Evans, so both Jaguars through to the group stages, and then the 2 Maseratis in Group B of Jake Hughes and Stoffel Van Dorn also progress forwards. De Vries versus Gunther up first of all, Ticktum versus Cassidy, Jake Hughes versus Mitch Evans, and Stoffel Van Dorn versus Pascal Verline. Up first though, quarterfinal 1, Nick De Vries versus Maximilian Gunther, Mahindra versus DS Penske. De Vries with a bit more of an advantage over Gunther, but still less than a tenth of a second in it. A 1:07.574 for Nick De Vries. Very nice lap time there for the Dutchman, but Gunther catching in towards this final sector. Through into the last 2 corners we go, back into the XL centre. Gunther, lots of lock on, but he's lost time in the final sector. He comes across the timing line, and it's not going to be enough to get the head of Nick De Vries. De Vries and Mahindra are through. Quarterfinal 2, Dan Ticktum versus Nick Cassidy then. Going down to the final sector here for Dan Ticktum. Sector 2 still in favour of Dan Ticktum. He's built it up to nearly 2 tenths.
Well, this is surprising based on what we saw earlier, but Ticktum's done a great job of adapting.
Yeah, Cassidy beginning to pick up a bit more time though. It's going to be tight between these two. 1:07.632, so about a tenth of a second slower than what we saw from Nick De Vries a few moments ago. Can Cassidy pull the advantage back when he comes to the line? He can't! 17,000 of a second, and Dan Ticktum is through into the semi-finals. He'll go head-to-head with Nick De Vries. Quarterfinal 3 though, Jake Hughes versus Mitch Evans. Let's see what Hughes is going to be able to do. I think he's catching. Evans has got nearly a tenth and a half in his pocket. Hughes was the quicker of the 2 in sector 2, and he's brought the gap down to just half a tenth of a second. Out of the final corner we go now for Jake Hughes. He comes to break the beam and goes to the line. A 1:07.843. Evans, though, has picked up more time coming into this final sector.
Yeah, the Jaguar, those bumps that we saw on the run into 16, it definitely was more compliant. Evans was able to carry more momentum in that final sector, and he's ended up on a 1:07.65.
Quarterfinal 4 then, Stoffel Van Dorn versus Pascal Verline. Verline just being able to build up the advantage. 1:07.7 there for Stoffel Van Dorn. So certainly not the quickest time that we've seen so far, but sector 3 is where it's really coming alive here for Pascal Verline. Nearly 2 tenths in his back pocket, and unless he makes a mistake in his final corner, which he doesn't, I would imagine we're going to see Verline through ahead of Van Dorn, and indeed we do. So Pascal Verline will go head-to-head with Mitch Evans in semi-final 2. So 8 drivers down to our fantastic 4 for the semi-finals. Dan Ticktum versus Nick De Vries, Mitch Evans versus Pascal Verline. Semi-final 1 then coming up. Dan Ticktum for Cooper Kiro, Nick De Vries for Mahindra. Sector 2, quicker for Dan Ticktum. The gap now sitting at 35/100 of a second.
Yeah, Ticktum makes a tighter, shorter line through 15. I don't know if that's helping because look, De Vries is not further ahead.
Yeah, Dan Ticktum then coming through the final corner. Nick De Vries as well. Over the timeline we go for Nick De Vries, and he's just gotten ahead of Dan Ticktum. He does out-qualify the Briton by 9,000th of a second. Semi-final 2. I can't call this one. Mitch Evans versus Pascal Verline. a 107.3. That's a fantastic lap on the board there for Mitch Evans. And Verline's dropped time in sector 2. He's nearly 0.2 of a second adrift of the Kiwi.
Yeah, but Verline's time, we'll see when he comes up here. He's getting closer. Both of them 107.3s, but only 300s between them, Tom. I mean, that is unbelievably fast.
So then, we go ready for the finals. Nick de Vries versus Mitch Evans. Mahindra versus Jaguar. So we slow the 2 laps down then here. We've got a side-by-side comparison between de Vries and Evans, and this will be a great opportunity here, Karun, to sort of pick out the differences in line and style between them.
Yeah, you can see there Evans' big snap of oversteer as he drops down the slope to the chicane, and that might have cost him a bit of time, but actually he's managed to keep momentum up, so only 4 thousandths between them. Now the track opens up, it widens briefly down this back straight as you then jump on the brakes for this custom house chicane through the bus stop there. Evans carrying good momentum, and this is where I think he's historically so far had a bit of an advantage. This braking zone for the right-hander off 16, but actually on this occasion Nick de Vries doing a fantastic job there. Left, then right. Now you climb sharply uphill, but Evans is carrying good momentum, Tom, through that left-right chicane.
Yeah, I think de Vries was a bit deep down into turn 16, and that's ultimately what's cost the judgment time. We come to the timing line then here between Evans and de Vries. We take the checkered flag, and it's pole position for Mitch Evans in London for round 15, to the delight of the Jaguar team.